So you've just received your new AERO.one and you open the box, and what's the next step? The first thing is locate the user manual, the user guide. It's a good thing to have around. There's a lot of good reference information and a lot of good suggestions and block diagrams of how to integrate the product into a typical facility. Now, your facility might be different, but this will at least let you see how it's used in some general cases. The very first thing that you should do, and if you've been watching any of the other videos, I'm going to be a nudge again, there's a warranty card in the packing kit. Please take a couple seconds and fill it out and drop it in the mail. Getting this back to us enables us to stay in contact with updates to software. If there's something new, we'll let you know about it, provide the information to you. If there's a manual change, we'd like to get that out to you as well, and the warranty card allows us to do that. Of course, we keep your information completely confidential. This is not for marketing purposes. So now you've got the unit mounted in the rack. You have the power supply connected, and you see two blue lights on the front. If you've ordered the optional redundant power supply, it's a good idea to have that connected. The reason we offer dual power supplies is more for facility protection. In case one of the power feeds goes down, the other one will keep the unit running. It only requires one to operate, but two is sort of a belt and braces approach to protecting the unit and keeping you on the air, especially if this unit might be doing the audio encoding for your facility. The next thing is to supply audio inputs and connect the outputs of the AERO.one to their destinations. If you're an AES facility, it's easy. The unit comes pre-configured for AES. It's important to set the clock correctly. If you're an AES facility, the clocking can be on the first or the fourth AES input or the AES reference input. So you might wonder, why use the AES reference input? With some MPEG encoders, if you're generating the Dolby Digital signal, they want to feed the reference to that Dolby Digital encoder. So that's what the AES reference input allows you to do. By selecting that in the I/O menu, and let's go there and we can take a look at reference settings. So down to Setup, over to I/O, and this is a pretty extensive list. There's a lot of things being controlled in here. So if you go down to the clock source, right now it's set to SDI. For this video, we're running SDI in. It's one simple cable, so it makes it a little bit cleaner. That X is flashing because we have set embedding to be active. So if we turn embedding off, that X will stop flashing. What the X means is that you've selected embedding. We're forcing this unit to select SDI as the clock source. If we're embedding into SDI, we need that to be our clock source. So now if we go back up to clock source, you can see you can run it on internal 48 kilohertz, which is a great option if you want to do a desktop demo. But other than that, probably not a good choice because it runs on an internal clock which is asynchronous from your plant. You can select AES reference, as we discussed, and as you're making these selections, you'll notice on the front there is a reference LED, a ref LED. I've selected AES reference, but it's not connected to the unit, so reference has turned red. I do have an SDI signal present, so if I select SDI, that reference LED goes back to green. Green on the front is good. If you see red, something is probably not right. So once you've selected the clock source, then you can go down and select the audio inputs. In this case, it's SDI. It can be any of the SDI pairs. It can be defaulted to the AES input. So input 1 and 2 defaults to AES 1 and 2, the way it ships from the factory. The outputs are always present on SDI. Sorry, when the SDI option is in, the outputs are always present on AES. So even if you have the SDI option, you'll always get AES outputs. If you want to change how the SDI routing is taking place, so if you're going to re-embed the outputs of this AERO.one, this is where you select it. So SDI pair 1 and 2, where do I get that signal from? Well, we call the output of the box AES out because essentially you're taking the same signal that's on the AES output and embedding it into SDI. You can also use this as a channel shuffler. So if you want SDI 3 and 4 to be stuck back into SDI 1 and 2, you can select that. You can also select the Dolby Digital encoder outputs to have them be re-embedded in the SDI output. If you are using GPI, you need to set that, so GPI would be used to control upmixing. A better suggestion might be to select auto upmixing. That will automatically turn upmixing on and off depending on whether the input is 5.1 or stereo. One other thing that's helpful is that if the input settings are correct, you should see audio on both the input and the output meters. In this case, you can see that stereo audio is coming in and 5.1 is coming out. And by going down through the meters, you can see that upmixing is set to auto. So it's doing exactly the right thing. Audio's coming in, it's being upmixed, you've got outputs. This is a good indication that you're at least part of the way there. From here, you just want to make sure that the outputs go where you're intending, and you should be on the air and all set. That's really it. Input settings, you can run with a default preset, set auto upmixing if you desire, and make sure everything on the front panel is green. The last thing would be to make sure that your output loudness is correct. That requires an external meter, like a linear acoustic LQ1000 or a Dolby LM100, that will let you see that your output loudness is where you expect it to be. If you need to adjust that, there's actually another video that talks specifically about that subject.